Good afternoon. Today I made a fairly important decision about the future of this YouTube channel and really all my social medias based on recent developments I've had about the importance of international access to investment education, small business education, and personal development. And I don't claim to be a guru in any of these matters. But I do care a lot about them. And as you can see over the course of this channel, I've put quite a bit of work into producing very thorough, informative, and accurate courses on personal development, investing, and some minor things that help with small business development and kind of investing in yourself and building out if you want to be sort of down that entrepreneurial path. And I really have nothing but good things to say. It's been an incredible number of years putting this content together, and it's certainly shaped the direction of my life. And I really appreciate, I know right now I've under 300 subscribers, and maybe it hasn't reached a huge amount of people yet, but for the few that have shown their support, I really appreciate it. In particular, the first stock lecture series, I do think I should point out again, even though he is featured in the foreword to my investing handbook, but I do really want to thank again Jay Crapster for being the one student out of an overflowing classroom of seminar attendees that really made it to the very end of that first stock market secret series that I did, and inspired me to even enter education as best that I can in the first place. There are 3 stories that I'm going to go through to sort of provide a little bit of a background on how I've reached the decision that I came to. And by the end of this video, hopefully you'll have a good understanding of my perspective, my intentions, and my reasoning for the decision that I'm making. And it's a choice that I do not take lightly, because I've always believed and do believe in fair and in the idea that anyone with ambition should have the smallest number of barriers possible to go through to turn that ambition into material success. And at the center of this question and the discussion that this video will be is the question of the importance of capital and monetary returns in products, services, content that you make. I was particularly inspired, it's not on my story list, but by MIT OpenCourseWare. They've done, I think, an unbelievable job, and to Khan Academy to a similar extent, in facilitating the idea that if you want to learn, you can learn, and it's up to you to do that, and it's not behind a paywall. That was always the big thing, and that gets me into my first story. And that story is about Ross Cameron. For those unfamiliar, Ross is a professional trader and the founder of a day trading academy that is, from everything I'm familiar with, best in its class, and really a killer. He's a great guy who's doing a lot of really great things in the education space for anyone that wants to pursue day trading full time. And he follows a model that I've seen quite a number of people that sell stock investing and day trading courses, which is that you pay a monthly subscription and you can join the community, and you can everyone talks together. There's like chat rooms for the opening bell, and everyone will share all their trades and things like that. And 100%. I get that that's a thing you can do. I appreciate it, the value, and I'm sure that it has it. People wouldn't pay for it if it wasn't valuable. I think, Ross, I don't know, I can't provide extensive dialogue, but I can say that I've seen some certain technical developments that they've done on certain data access for certain trading instances that they provide their users, and they are done to very high technical standards, and I appreciate that. But more importantly, um, as perhaps you are familiar if you've been following the channel for a while, the reason that I even got into the market is because I was working a minimum wage job at Subway. It was about when I entered high school, and my parents had separated, and I felt like I sort of was the man of the house and needed to step up. I was living at home with my mom and brother. And so I started working out, lost 50 pounds in about 6 months, and I got my first job at Subway, as I've documented on here, and worked there for about a year minimum wage, and really great experience. I have nothing but positive things to say about it. Really appreciated all the social skills I learned from that. It was really great. But my boss wasn't the nicest guy in the world, which, I was fine with. They were letting me work underage. But it got to the point that after about half a year working there, so many of my coworkers left that I would work open to close completely alone. And that was really challenging for me. And it made me realize that if I wanted any control over my financial future, I really had to take it into my own hands. And that's when I started researching. I'd been pretty unfamiliar with the stock market and investing for my whole life. And for one reason or another, I decided that would be maybe a cool thing to look into. And so for the next half year, every moment I had outside of work or school went into learning about investing and trying things out, making my first few investments here and there, winning some, losing some, learning. And that was all based, and of course that led to kind of my whole career, and I quit my job to trade stocks full time, and it was very nice since then. But all of that was inspired by Ross Cameron, and in particular at the time he was doing a challenge, which he is, I'd say now, at least currently, most famous for, which is that he turned about $580 into about $100,000. If I remember correctly, it was in about a year, maybe. It's been a while. I don't remember the exact specifics. I would check out his YouTube channel. Basically, he did all the trading live on his YouTube channel, so you could see every single day. You'd watch his account grow from $580 to a very sizable sum, and that was incredibly inspirational, because here I am working a minimum wage job. I've got $580 to trade with. Of course, I kind of didn't realize how hard it would be to get. He had this. There's a lot I could dive into there around the PDT rule, and I will leave it at that for now. But the long story short is that Ross was a really big inspiration for me getting into trading, and I really appreciate all the content that he put out there for free, and it just inspired me to enter this industry. And that idea, and of course I learned another name that comes to mind is Investors Underground very early on, as someone that I learned a lot from. They just posted great materials on their blog generally, and websites like that, and I was just like spending half my life on Investopedia. I remember there was this unbelievably talented writer there named James Chen, who seemed to be the author of almost every single article that I read. So he was really inspirational too, and certainly the 9 to Noon would, my investing handbook wouldn't exist without so many people. Those are just three that come to top of mind, but I mean there are really an unbelievable number of people that were quite inspirational in helping help me where I am to get me to where I am today. So with that said, a real turning point came to me when I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. My dad gave me Think and Grow Rich when I was about 13 or 14. and it sat on my bookshelf for 3 years. It was the first book I ever voluntarily read, and I just got bored one day and thought it sounded interesting, so I gave it a read, and my life really has never been the same since then. It was a real light bulb moment for me, akin to when I I made more in the first 2 weeks in a paper account trading than I made the entire year prior working at Subway. And the reason why is because it showed me that I could really achieve anything that I wanted. All I had to do was pick a goal and set my mind to it. So I was 16 when I read that book. I do believe I was 15 or 16. And when I was 16, that's when I created my goal to build the online broker, decentralized, blockchain, help people build real savings and retirements, all that. And I made that goal after the summer trading and crypto and all things like that. But one thing that was quite inspirational in that story was Vitalik Buterin and Ethereum in general. So I learned about Ethereum, and I'd say it must have been a month, maybe 2 at the most. I'd say within 2 months of learning about Ethereum and kind of the concepts and the ideologies and the implications of its technology, I created my long-term goal in accordance with the principles in Think and Grow Rich. And we'll come back to Think and Grow Rich at the end of this video when I talk about the material decision that I made. But again, long story short, is that goal that I created because of Think and Grow Rich, based off of really those were the major influencers, everyone that I've mentioned so far. That goal is my guiding light, and I can't thank. There's so many people to thank. It's really hard to do. Before we get into the next story, on the note of people to thank are my mom and dad, who not only had they been very, very helpful in just figuring things out, and I will briefly give examples because I don't want a video to be too long. But my mom, my mom and dad, I guess this also influenced kind of my ideas. When I was born, give or take, they maybe a few years before I was born, they opened an American restaurant in the area. It was run by a general manager. He had sort of a chain of other stores in the area. They went by the name of Midtown Sundries. It's a local thing, so whatever. But it was very interesting. They ran it for a decade until they closed it in 2012, I believe. 2012. It was right around when they separated my parents, and so I'm pretty sure that timing's right. 2011, maybe on the earlier side, at the earliest. And I could talk all day about that. It was extremely interesting. So many business things to learn from that. Now that looking back and having talked, but so there was always kind of this entrepreneurial thing. They basically saved up from working in corporate, and they wanted to put it into some investment, and that investment, through an unfortunate series of events, they were supposed to be capital partners, but they ended up kind of having to run the whole operation for the better part of 8 or 9 years. And that's a whole story. But anyway, long story short, more currently, my mom, really amazing lawyer, so she has been helpful with some things that for us on the compliance side. And my dad, really incredible municipal bond financier, so again, very helpful on not the compliance side, but on the on the bank, on the systems and the infrastructure side of what I'm working. So they were very, very helpful, very influential. But of relevance to the story is that they also put me through Georgia Tech, which was greatly appreciated. And it was at Georgia Tech that I only wanted to, like, I remember freshman year, there's just this one class I wanted to take the whole time I was there called Blockchain and Cryptocurrencies. And it led to the thesis that led to block transfer and a lot of, and that was all based off of that goal that I had written years ago. And at the time I had my book, my investing handbook, and I had a number of, I had the first course that I recorded, and through the course of freshman and sophomore year, I recorded a number of other investing courses, most of which are public on the channel. Excuse me. And I recorded a number of other courses. The two largest projects were the Think and Grow Rich book course and a course on how to win friends and influence people based on the book by Dale Carnegie. And we'll get back to these at the end of the video and kind of the material decision that I made. But long story short, I spent the better part of a year, if my memory serves me right. I was staying at my dad's girlfriend's it was like, the apartment at the top of the building. So she had a library, and I was recording all the videos in the library. And what I would do is I got a camera for my birthday, for Christmas, just Canon, something, And at school, they had a media lab where you could just like rent cameras for the weekend, basically. And lights and microphones and all the things you would need to make a professional studio kind of look fairly nice. So what I would do is I lived about 45 minutes away from school by bike, and so during the summer I lived in that apartment, and then that was my first summer at school. I got accepted to Georgia Tech conditional on going the first summer semester. So I was recording it at the library and biking back and forth for the studio equipment materials. If my memory, yeah, I might have Ubered once or twice because it was a lot. It was like a whole bag of think like light poles, lights, camera mounts, like big studio quality cameras. Studio mics, stuff like that. So that's what I did I think that was most of the Think and Grow Rich course, was what I think was kind of the summer and maybe the first few months into school. I had still come back and forth. And then I think it was when COVID hit that I did most of the How to Win Friends and Influence People one, based around a similar semantics, similar scheduling, and transportation. Unfortunately, I didn't have my electric skateboard at the time, because that would have made life a whole lot easier. I also recorded, another big part of my life growing up was My Little Pony. It's, for those not familiar, a show that has amassed a fairly large adult following because of the very intricate and I think incredibly valuable friendship, relationship building lessons that are very artfully weaved into its storyline. And so I also taught on campus to make it a little easier, so I didn't have to keep carrying the cameras back and forth. I rented out some classrooms and taught live seminars there for a very large number of things. I also taught some investing seminars using a similar style. Most those investing seminars are public on here. And so All of that teaching, looking back, like, God, I wish I was just trading. I remember there was a series of videos I recorded, and I didn't realize it until I went back to look at the editing results. But they were all recorded on like March 18th, March 19th, March 20th of 2020, which was exactly when all my positions were hitting their absolute peak values. And I should have been exiting. I only exited like a fifth of the values instead of, the rest of them. And I really should have been watching it a little more closely. I might have exited. And yeah. Anyway, long story short, I realized through trying to create content during the COVID crash, that I really needed to narrow down how I spent my time and exactly what I put my efforts and my focus on. And the reason is very simple, and I'll use an anecdotal example. If I have all my details correct and I remember everything properly, it's my understanding that the CEO of Enron was also, for most of his tenure, the the head trader on the trading desk, if I remember correctly. And there are a number of other examples where the CEO or equivalent role tries to do the trading role, and inevitably there is always chaos because trading is it requires a lot, and it requires full-time commitment, full-time focus, and you really can't half-ass it. As I've shown on this channel through the 6 to 8 months, what was it, 8 months, right? That because sometimes you fall out. But there's a whole video on that on here on Polyphasic Uberman, where I would sleep 2 hours a day. I'd take a 15-minute nap every 4 hours, or 20 minutes. I think, yeah, 20 minutes. Just to trade Forex, right? Because the market's never closed, and I love that. Gotta say, one of the best times. I really want to get back to doing that because I got an incredible amount of productivity from it and felt amazing when you do it on keto, like I talked about in the video on that. But yeah, so long story short, I had all this content, all this educational content, and I wanted to get it in front of people. And also, it would be nice if I'm going to spend all my time, energy, and money hiring people to edit, it would be nice to get some kind of return on that. And I'd also, spend better part of a year writing a whole book on investment strategies that I'd time tested, and that over the few years after that, I'd actually been using to very nice success in my own investments, in the family fund I ran, and then of course, looking back now, I have made quite a number of nice plays that are paying for the roof over my head since recording those courses and writing that book, and I really appreciate that. So I thought it'd be nice if I could, sell like online courses and books and things like that. And that led me down a path to finding Russell Brunson, who's a very talented marketer. And it's funny, I think I studied so much of his material on one video that's particularly popular on this channel. Someone commented that I sounded just like him, and that was a real wake-up point for me, because I realized, my God, I'm turning into Russell Brunson. And awesome guy, really incredible story, and actually built and I'd say dominated a market with a startup using no venture funding, which really was quite inspirational and very, very cool. Excuse me. My dad actually told me that I don't know if it was confidential, so if it was, sorry, but they were going to Wells Fargo to. I'll keep it broad, so I he didn't tell me anything like too sensitive, but they were going. He actually met I think it was him and the CFO or Dickerson or someone. They went to Wells and they were trying to get a 1 billion valuation on their company after, I don't know, maybe 6 years, 7 years of operation, which was really cool. I think those numbers are right. I know the billion is right because they were doing just a hell of a lot in recurring SaaS. So anyway, he has created a very large repertoire of both free and paid marketing content. He'd call them secrets. And yeah, I mean, they're really good, and they helped me get to where I am today and in learning about online marketing, which is, probably the only way most people will be marketing in the future. So they say. So, I don't know, whatever, right? Russell was really inspirational in trying online marketing, running ads, trying to sell my book, trying to sell myself, and helped me find a voice and put my stories down in words about sort of everything that led me into this industry. And I'm very thankful for that. As you can see on this channel, on my podcast, on my old Instagrams and Facebooks, I never gained a whole lot of traction through my best efforts to sell my book, and I didn't have as many case studies back then. I didn't have as much of a profitable trading history back then. So I get it. And the long and short of it is, still got a bunch of them. I ordered, I was trying to give away, or there's this whole system that he recommends where you set up. I would check him out if you're interested in any kind of online business like that. But the long and short of it is, I really did give it all my best efforts. And I was using the Think and Grow Rich course as the first upsell on top of my book and the audiobook. And then the How to Win Friends and Influence People course, I tied in with the MLP content as the second upsell. And that was sort of the style that they recommended for starting off on a project. But for one reason or another, it never gained foot. Never got a lot of traction, which I'm really thankful for looking back, because I certainly do worry that if it had gained a lot of traction, I would be kind of all focused on selling courses and being some stock mentor guru, and I almost certainly would have dropped out of college to trade stocks full time, which is all I really want, is to just trade full time. It's really all I want to do. But unfortunately, maybe fortunately, so like I said, that never happened, and I kept on trading, and it was in, I think, junior year of college that I entered the biggest trade I've had so far, where I did, after, it was on my own behalf, on my own account, and it was about 59,000% net on Bitcoin short futures at 69,500 down to, I believe it was 18 or 21. It's funny, I don't remember the price, but if you show me a daily chart, I can point to the exact candle, because it was a limit order, and the market kind of crashed down one day before then. I could talk all day. That trade, about a third of it went to the broker in commissions and fees. And that was really the wake-up moment for me, where I realized that even if I am the absolute best at my game, and and granted, certainly there are different, certainly 100%, there are less leverage, less exotic, less speculative investments, they're going to have lower fees. But there are still very real costs in every securities trade presently executed on centralized platforms. And I thought and I've known that there just has to be a better way, and that was really the turning point for me when finally that goal that I wrote 5 years ago, I think it was five. Let's see, I was 20. Yeah, 5 years ago. That goal I wrote 5 years ago from Think and Grow Rich that was when I really realized that had to become a reality. And the reason why is because there just has to be a better way. You shouldn't have to pay a third of your trades to your broker. And I get for most people it's not a third every trade, but you've got to imagine that even a small amount here and there, compounding over the course of 40 years by the time you retire, that's a very sizable sum of money for most people. And before I so that's what really led me to what we're working on now, and I'll acknowledge also that along the way there was a lot of help that came from the content produced by Mark Falk and Dr. Suzanne Trimbath. They've done so much work uncovering some very big problems in our markets, and I would recommend certainly learning more about their work as well. They were also very influential in my ultimate choice back then, which was to close down the family fund after its best year ever to focus entirely on block transfer. A timing, I might add, that couldn't have come worse for me, because it was about January of 2021, right? Yeah. When I did that, and for a number of years, I'd been following Wall Street Bets, the infamous subreddit, and that was the moment that I stopped following the news, I stopped following the tickers, I stopped following the trending things on Wall Street Bets, and of course, that's when, Wall Street Bets really predicted something pretty freaking incredible with GameStop. So, yeah, I I was spending every moment outside of work and school preparing for this thing that I've been eagerly anticipating for years, called the Inventure Prize. They basically had us practicing our pitch every waking moment. It was pretty crazy, but a lot of help, and as I said, I think in other videos, a lot of really incredible connections from that, and a really great experience that I would not change in any way going back. But that experience did, I might say, come at the cost of missing the GameStop trade. So, I'm not a lucky guy, but I'm a hardworking guy. So, there is one more story I wanted to weave into this that did have an impact on the material choice that I made about the Think and Grow Rich and the How to Win Friends and Influence People courses. And it's a story about, I do believe I was writing the book at the time in high school. Yeah, because it was junior year. And I was really interested, well, I don't know, it's weird. I was not the most social kid. I was a pretty weird kid. Growing up, I had problems, very material behavior problems that did not help my family life, and I'll leave it at that. Very thankfully, we got help, and I've been better since then, much better. So anyway, the point is, I wasn't exactly up to speed socially when I was growing up, and for I don't exactly know what the factors were, and I'm sure part of it was just that urge that you get in high school. But I'll just give you kind of the high level, because the details really aren't materially relevant. Basically, there was this one girl, Kaylee, that I really want. Like, she was into me, I was into her. Theoretically, I don't know. Maybe I'm presuming things, but that was the vibe I got. And I thought, really, like, it's good, right? But basically, for one reason or another, I didn't feel like personally I deserved to date her at the time, and so I started dating someone else, And I remember she pulls me out of class or something like that, and she stops me in the hallway. She's like, "Are you dating so and so?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we went on one date." Yeah, it was all nothing. I mean, I was like I said, I was not up to speed socially back then. But um, anyway, she starts dating one of my friends after that, and oh god, uh, we were both on the cross country team, and we our names were like almost identical. So for me, I don't know what it was, but that really irked me. And I felt so silly, and I won't dive into the details because it doesn't really matter. But what does matter is a lesson that I learned from all that, and it was around the time when I was starting to learn how to set goals, thanks to Think and Grow Rich. And the after my long term goal, the first short term goal I set was to publish 9 to noon by January 29th, 2019. And that was after I had first taught the stock market secrets course. Excuse me. And so I was really focused and excited about goals at the time. And about halfway into the fall semester, whatever you call it in high school, um, I really wanted to start dating Kaylee. So I made it my goal to date her by some date. I don't exactly remember what it was. Um, and I was like so focused on it all day, every day, and I just kind of started doing like weird stalker things at school where I just like, for example, randomly just sit next to her at lunch at a table full of girls for no reason. It was pretty weird. Like I said, I wasn't entirely up to speed socially back then. And of course, I just made a fool of myself, is the long and short of it. And uh, it made me realize that there are sort of two kinds of goals you can set, and I've since found more evidence supporting. You can set a goal related to your action and yourself and what you can do. And an example of that would be the goal I had at the time to write a book and publish it by the 29th. That's a goal that you can, and I did, achieve, and it felt awesome. Then there are external goals, things like building great relationships, or another goal I had at the time was making 100,000 because I had, if you saw the video on here about how I lost the first 100,000, I was like, okay, well, I'd like to make that back, please. So my goal is to make $100,000, and that was and it had a deadline to it. I don't remember exactly what it was. But it was those are externally focused, right? They're factors that you can influence through your action, but you can't entirely control theoretically in most cases. I mean, sure, if you want to make 100 grand, you could set a goal where you save 25 grand a year and you'll make it in 4 years. Sure, okay, fine. But it's not like that's, but then it's just more of an action plan of working for 4 years than the external result of the money. And that's exactly what I found happened with this instance where I was trying to force myself basically onto, and nothing serious ever happened at all. But just that idea that you force an external result to appear is really not a healthy way to set goals. I've come to understand. And that leads me back into what I was trying to do at the time with the courses was I wanted to teach people about investing because investing's incredible and it changed my life and is the foundation to build real savings and retirements. And I've seen firsthand and done firsthand, and have every intention, belief, and that there are a pretty reasonable number of things you can do to really increase your investment returns. And by the time you retire, even small increases in investment returns have monumental impacts on the amount that you stuff away because of the miracle of compounding. If you're not familiar, I would recommend the first episode of the Stock Market Secrets series on here. First video I ever made, and I don't think there's a better topic that could be in it. So that's what I was doing when I was building what I'm now calling Wooten Wealth, is just sort of the collection of courses and content and education and tools and resources that I had started putting together then and over a number of years to help people learn how to invest. And then it eventually kind of morphed into like learning about success with small businesses and personal development, all of which are very important things. I think investing is probably the one that I have the best grasp on. Excuse me. But I think all these other things are very important, and even things like working out, I really cared about and tried to communicate through some courses, because I mean, how are you gonna have success with your wealth if does it even really matter? My dad's girlfriend that I mentioned earlier, she started a company, did a really great job working for decades, and exited, and very nice work there. But it killed her back. I mean, she freaking can't get out of bed now, and she's got like all this money in a Schwab account, and what can you even do with it if you're not healthy? So there are a lot of other things, but I do believe that my best area of focus is going to be on the investing space, and whether it's investing in paper assets, investing in yourself, or investing in small business or business assets. Small business is really, I'm not going to be the guy to run DCFs. That's just not my thing. So those are kind of the three pillars that I think Wooten Wealth will be built around. Is the education around investing in yourself, paper assets, and your own small business. The thing with, and really the focus is paper assets, because that's really where I think I can add the most value, because there's a lot of unbelievable content. You just go on Audible, okay, and you'll find so much personal development things. It's unbelievable. And similarly, there's a lot of really smart business people, and there are so many things to it, and I just couldn't even hope to explain everything that they have to share. I mean, there's just so much. So I really do think the focus will be, I think, on the paper assets, where I have, I'd say, probably the most value to share, the most unique experience, and the most experience and the most results, the most tangible results, where it's, I mean, it has been really my only means of pay for years now, and it's had great results for students, that the limited number of students that I have been able to reach with my work have shared very impressive results. So that's kind of what I think the focus will be on, and I'm calling it as a separate thing, and I really hope that Wooten Wealth and the people around it eventually, and the content and everything that it can do to promote investing will help masses of people build real savings and retirements. And in particular, the first pillar of my overarching goal is to create the system that block transfer and Procyon are building is to facilitate a centralized system that rewards independent money managers. Because I think there's a lot of alpha, and I could spend the next hour talking about all the details of this, so I'm just going to give a very high level. I think there's a lot of alpha hidden away in independent money managers, as in traders. Even if it's a trader with a company and they have maybe people, analysts, whatever, I think there's a lot of hidden alpha in those traders that only trade for themselves, and because they're very good at what they do, they make a living off of their trading, and but they don't have the itch to go and start a hedge fund, due largely because it can be very difficult depending on the assets you're trading. It can be very difficult to scale your results. I've personally seen that for people that are day trading in like smaller cap stocks, the limit per investment is around the 60 to 80K mark, and anything over that, and even a lot of times less than that, you start to really move the market, and you can't really trade the same as you were trading before. And this is something that Ross Cameron has explicitly noted, is that you can only get to a certain size. And it's the same for mid cap. I found it to be in the range of a few 100,000 based off anecdotal experience, evidence, and studies. And then on the higher end, again, anecdotally, in the range of a few million. Someone who's really showcased this firsthand is James Simmons, whose Medallion fund, the infamous math-based quant trading fund, and really a pioneer in the investing space, it's unbelievable. I won't dive specifically into the numbers because I don't know enough to speak about it knowledgeably, but the reason why is because nobody can invest in it, right? The normal public can't invest in it. From what I understand, the only people that can even deposit small amounts are staff that work for him. And the reason why is because at a certain point, the trading strategies that it uses stop working. When you get to a certain size, when you get to a big enough position, it just breaks down. And that's what he found over the years. Trying to, obviously, you want to grow your hedge fund as big as you can, and the dude takes, I think, like, 80%, just like 60% flat fees every single year, and he still manages to like quadruple the market net returns, gross of fees. And yeah, so that's just one example of someone that's really good at trading, but is limited by the size. You can only get so big and still have really great alpha. And the problem is that a lot of people, they hit that size ceiling fairly early in their career, and there's just no incentive to take on outside capital and to go through the arduous process of opening a hedge fund and setting up a whole company for that, and then issuing securities, and then dealing with the compliance of that, and registering as a money manager with the SEC, and providing the returns and taking the exams if you want to charge a performance fee, and there's just so much to it. That for a lot of these independent traders, they just do it for themselves. And one of the really big pillars, and I would love to dive more into the mission of Procyon, but I just don't think, it's just not relevant here, and it doesn't, but long story short, the system's going to let these guys trade on their own behalf, and then in a perfect world, and there are many details to work out, but in a perfect world, there could be an automated system that copies their trading and in an efficient manner, and ideally everyone could partake in their great trading expertise through similar returns while rewarding them as the independent money manager. And to do that, to create a very large amount, because there's a very diverse range of these independent money managers, and they all make their living trading, and they do an incredible job at it. But what's really interesting is the more diversity you put into a portfolio, all of a sudden, vis-a-vis Ray Dalio, now you can't lose money if you have just enough diversity that everything is independently correlated. One goes up, one goes down. It's like the portfolio of umbrellas and sunscreen, right? It's just going to introduce a lot of stability into everything. And that's one of the reasons that I started making all these investing videos in the first place, was to show anyone without a barrier to the market, show them how to just invest successfully, because I think that more and more people investing successfully will benefit all of society. That said, that's what I really want Wooten Wealth to promote, and part of my inspiration behind a lot of the content that I've already put out for free is the mentality that the Jed McCaleb had. He was the, I'd say, founder of Stellar, and when he broke off from Ripple, everybody thought he was just this crazy artsy guy who was doing all this weird stuff to benefit. The whole focus has always been on these developing nations and developing strong payments infrastructure in particular for them, and an easy way to transfer and manipulate assets and hold assets and transact assets in a very compliant way. It's always been the focus since day one for Stellar, but mostly on the developing nation side of things, which is really important because there are billions of people on the planet that don't have access to capital investment markets. They have nowhere to invest, and because of that, they have no savings or retirements, and that is extremely unfortunate. And I want those groups of people to have access to this content and to these opportunities to invest and to learn to outperform and to really succeed in the markets if that's what they want to do. So that's why I think it's really important that a lot of the investment focused material is public facing and is done in a manner similar to a nonprofit. And so I always envisioned that Wooten Wealth would be this nonprofit that would basically spread and disseminate this information. And if I had $1 million in the bank today, there's not a question in my mind that that's exactly what would happen. I would be founding the nonprofit today. I'd hire a small team to put things together and make it look good, and as much as I could, I'd have them organize more and more educational things that I could that we could help with. But that's not the situation that I'm in, and it's led me to a deep appreciation for capitalism, first and foremost, in that capital really is just a way that we can, capital money, same thing, a way that we can show what we value personally, as a society, individually, and collectively. And it's just a way to allocate resources that, some say it's a representation of time, and that's fairly reasonable. I look back at the countless months that went into these courses and the preparations and the materials and the editing and so many things and the research. It's just a lot, and I just came to the conclusion that it would make sense to have some kind of return from that. Like I said, I've sold these courses before, and I think that at least right now, I think that the revenues that come from that, so let me clarify. Firstly, on the basis of focus and putting efforts in one place and not being like the Enron CEO or whatever, I will be slowing down significantly on this YouTube channel, on any emails, and any other social medias, and the podcast, everything. I'm going to be slowing down so I can really direct all my attention towards building out the financial infrastructure that needs to be in place for our securities markets. And that means you probably won't see a whole lot on here. So for that, I don't know what to tell you. But down the road, my plan is that once I make enough to put a pretty decent amount of startup capital into the thing, I'll hire a small team to build out Wooten Wealth, and they can figure out if they want to do it through a nonprofit or if they want to do it through selling the courses, and using that revenue to fund new courses, to fund new opportunities, to fund new like I could think of a number of things that you could use money for, use from the proceeds, that would allow you to kind of further the mission of spreading financial education, whether it's on a donation basis as a nonprofit or whether it's on a selling courses to people that can afford it basis, and then offering those who can't afford it certain discount programs or things like that. And that's a mentality that I've taken from day one. It's the reason why I uploaded 9 to Noon, my investing handbook, to a service called Library Genesis, if you're familiar, where you can, it shares the books around the world for free. And because I think it's really important that this education be out there. And for the amount of material effort that went into these two particular courses, with the Think and Grow Rich and the How to Win Friends and Influence relationships, I'm gonna leave them under the wraps and on a for sale basis for now. I don't have I stopped paying for the website to sell all this stuff, and I'm really not going to make any material marketing efforts or any efforts whatsoever to distribute this material. In the interim, before, I think it's going to be a number of years before I really can put a full team on this and have them really focus on the core ideology of information about how to really effectively invest and trade and build wealth, through paper assets. It's gonna be a while, but if you're interested in these courses, then all I would say is you can send an email to hi@wootenwealth.com, and just forgive me if it takes a while to get back to you, or if you have any comments, I'd send it to there as well, or if you want to share your perspective there or in the comments of this video. Would really appreciate the perspective and what you think, because this is an important decision, I think. And it's not like I want my career and my money to come from selling courses, because I don't. It should come from trading. That's all I want to do. And that's why I just want to build this trading infrastructure, and I just want to freaking use it to trade. But there's a very, very real question of, could I charge for some courses? And by charging for some courses, we could, release a very large amount of free material on the backs of people that are willing to pay for it. So pay for more advanced, training or services or whatever it turns into. So yeah, that's kind of the decision that I've come to at the moment. I'm basically, because of all the factors I mentioned, putting I would say the education side that I care so much about, putting it on hold, chiefly because I think I've done a really great job, respectfully and without trying to sound like a dick. I think the videos that are public already on this channel are a pretty good representation of what I have to teach you at the moment. And aside from just the Think and Grow Rich course on goal setting and the relationship building and the social skills course, which I'd say are not really instrumental to paper asset investing. They're very useful for small business goals and small business team development, and if you want to start a small business, they're very useful for that. And there's some good marketing stuff, I think, but there's like I said, there's a lot of people that teach that kind of stuff. So I don't think I'm like stealing. I don't think I'm taking away a lot of. I think I've put forth the the biggest things and the most impactful materials that I can share publicly. And these I'm gonna hold up my sleeve for the time being, uh, for Wooten Wealth, when down the road I decide that we're ready for a team to really dive into that and to make it something really really special, because it deserves that. And I just don't have the time or the resources right now to facilitate that. So that's kind of the call that I came to here. I put a lot of thought into making everything free or doing some of it paid, and like I said, I'd really appreciate your perspective on it, because this is not a final decision by any means. I'm just pushing it out, and so if you have any insights or would like to contribute or anything like that, again, the comments, or shoot an email to hi@wootenwealth.com. And do forgive me if I take a while to get back, because it's just me right now. Um, and that's kind of what I have to share with you on this material choice. So yeah, thank you so much for your support of my content and this channel. I know there are other social medias. I'm not very good at any of them. I was never a huge social media guy, which is why, again, I just don't think it's something that I could very well reasonably balance with everything else. Do let me know what you think. And with that said, really appreciate any feedback that you have to share. And I hope that you have a stellar investment career.